Hello, all my movie-loving maniacs. It's your boy Bradford Lassiter, aka Big Brad the Rock, and this is my review of Star Wars The Last Jedi. Yeah, I know this review is pretty much a week late, but for a good reason. Now, the Star Wars The Last Jedi, it came out last week, and at this point, it is probably the most divisive of all the Star Wars films, and for good and bad reasons, but I did see the film on opening night and I walked away. I enjoyed it, but after a couple of days, I just found myself really conflicted with this film because there were things I liked about the film and there were things I didn't like about the films. And then there were things about the film where I was just like, what the fuck? So I just knew, like, one, I had to see this movie twice, which I did, and I just had to take some time to reflect on this film before I give my initial review on this film, and I've come to the conclusion that I might as well just give my spoiler review of this film. So yeah, not only this is an audio review, but this is also a spoiler review. So yeah, consider this a spoiler review, because I really feel like I have to talk about this film detail to detail in order for y'all to really, I guess, get the reasons of why I'm conflicted with this film and why ultimately I give this film the rating that I will give it by the end of this review. So yeah, consider this a spoiler warning. So you've been warned. Now, to break it down, the three main things in this film is all the Luke Skywalker and Rey stuff, the space stuff with the Rebellion and the First Order, and all the Finn and Rose stuff. The Luke Skywalker stuff, I love. All the space stuff, I was half and half on, and all the Finn and Rose stuff is arguably the weakest of this film. Yeah, I will start with, let's just start on a more positive note. I'll talk about the things that I did like about this film. So yeah, I did say all the Luke Skywalker stuff, all the Luke Skywalker stuff I really did like, and I just really like where they took his character and his story arc in the film. And the film, well, it doesn't, but it opens up with where The Force Awakens left off, with Rey handing Luke Skywalker his father's lightsaber, or his lightsaber was then, and the last time he saw it, he got cut off by his own father, and now we just wonder, like, how did you get this? Which I thought they would really explain, but they didn't. When Luke Skywalker gets the lightsaber, he just throws it over the shoulder, which was funny, but it was just like, not the right reaction we was quite expecting, which is one of the problems. It was a small problem, but one of the problems with the film is the humor with this film. I felt like some of the humor with this film didn't quite land, like all the caretakers on the island with Luke. That was a bit forced. Luke Skywalker squirting green milk out of that creature, like, it was like, what the hell? And the porks. Now, before I continue, let me just say the porks. Yes, we all know what they're here for marketing and merchandising, but to be honest, the porks wasn't really, they were like the fifth or sixth thing that was wrong in this movie. They weren't annoying to a point where they weren't the Ewoks or Jar Jar Binks. They don't overtake this film, and they weren't even part of the main story of the film, though it was sweet to see Chewbacca actually cook a pork, and when I saw that, I was like, yes, Chewie. But no, we're not talking about porks right now. Right now, let's get back to Luke Skywalker. So yeah, Luke Skywalker, he's a little apprehensive about training Rey in the ways of the Jedi, but then eventually he does see R2-D2, which I do like. I like the reunions Luke Skywalker has. Like he sees Chewbacca, and then he's informed of Han's death from the last film, and he was just like, you could tell he was really bummed out. And then he gets on the Millennium Falcon and he sees R2, and I'll give Rian Johnson credit for this, his attention to detail, because he sees Luke Skywalker, he sees R2-D2, and he felt like a kid again. Like, he doesn't just be like, R2, he's just like, R2? The way he said it in the old films. I just like that little reunion right there. And then R2, he's trying to convince him that the rebels need his help, and then Luke Skywalker, he says no, but then R2, he puts out the old hologram message of Princess Leia, and you can tell he was like, cheap. But no, I just like the little reunions Luke Skywalker has, and the other reunions he has, we'll get more into that later. But I do like his story arc in which, like, Luke Skywalker, he's supposed to be this big, legendary, epic hero, and it turns out that, you meet your hero, and they're not exactly who they turn out to be. They're just regular human beings like we are, and he's lost all faith, and he's old. And so he teaches Rey the ways of the Force, and that kind of goes half and half. But jumping back to here, I do like that opening space battle led by Poe Dameron, which was, kind of a bad call on his part. They're putting the bombs out to destroy the Star Destroyers, and then Leia, she's not having it. She demotes him, and then the rebels attack them because they were tracking them through hyperspeed, and then the First Order was tracking them through hyperspeed, and they get them, and then they blow. And I do like that part where Kylo Ren, he's about to he has a means to kill his own mother, General Leia, but he doesn't. But then the rest of the First Order, they blow up the ship, and then Leia, excuse me. So Leia, she's pretty much floating out of the ship, and that was one of the parts right there. I was just like, huh? You know, they blow her out of the ship, and then she's just flying in space. Now, you can make the argument that she's in a force cocoon that's protecting her in environments that should clearly kill her. And in this case, she's just out in open space. But no, apparently that didn't kill her. And I guess she knows how to use the force for some reason. And then she opens her eyes, and then she gets back to the other ship along with the rest of the rebels. Now, that was just one of the parts where I was just like, I don't know, is it cool? Or should I just be like Han Solo for The Force Awakens and just be like, that's not how the Force works? You know, I was just really conflicted with that. Because I really thought like they were really going to kill her off. Because, you know, Carrie Fisher, you know, she passed away around this time last year. And I thought that was their way of killing her off. But apparently not. And I'm not saying that they had a plan to kill her off. To send the character off. I don't know. But we'll get more into that later. But some of the space stuff I did like. And especially because it especially pertains to Poe Dameron's arc in the film, in which, you know, he's doing reckless stuff and he gets demoted, and then you get General Holdo, played by Laura Dern with the purple hair, and you know she gets demoted, and she's clearly just bashing him, talking about you're reckless and this, that, and the third, and then she demotes him, and then he's reunited with Poe, and then Poe meets Rose, and then they go in this little side quest that was arguably the worst thing about this film. Excuse me while I drink some water real quick. So yeah, sorry. I'm really doing this review raw in the audio because, you know, I'm in a room by myself, and I really just wanted this to be intimate and just raw, you know. And so yeah, so pretty much let me just go over some more of my negatives. So yeah, I mentioned earlier how Luke throwing the lightsaber over his shoulder. Like, I really feel like they could have did more of that, because you got to think, this is the lightsaber that his arm that's missing, that's mechanical, that was the last thing that arm touched, and it was cut off by his own father. And especially since Han Solo, he even asked in The Force Awakens, where did you get that? And Maz Kanata, she says, that is a question for another time. And speaking of Maz Kanata, what a waste of a character in this film. You know, we just see her through a holographic message, and it just looked like she's playing Star Wars Battlefront, just shooting whatever the fuck she was shooting at. Like, they really could have used her. I mean, like, you can make the argument, you know, this is such a big film, you ain't got no time for other characters, but still, like, they could have, come on, y'all could have done better with that. Yeah, I say there's some more Force stuff where I'm just like, that's not how the Force works, but, you know, we'll get more into that later. And along with General Leia, when she got blown out of that ship, Admiral Akbar dies. You know, the one aim that says it's a trap, but, you know, he dies, and they just didn't send his character off the proper way that we all hoped. Now, I know he's a secondary character, but still, he says one of the most iconic lines that people took from the original trilogy. It's a trap! So, come on. Alright, so, yeah, let's get back to the Finn and Rose stuff, where they on this planet, and they trying to get this hacker, because what they need to do is they need to find this hacker that can, take the tracker off of the ships, because that's how the First Order is tracking them through hyperspace, so they're just trying to pretty much bypass that. So they go to this casino planet that was really, it felt a little earthly to me. It felt like I was watching Hunger Games for a sec. And then it goes into this social political commentary on animal cruelty and slavery and all that, which is fine, but just the way they illustrated it, it could have been done better. If you're going to give us a story like that, make it interesting. But no, they just didn't. And, you know, the whole time you're watching that, you're like, can we get back to the Luke Skywalker stuff or all the space stuff, you know? So yeah. I'm not going to spend too much time for that because, again, that was just arguably the worst part of that film, and especially with Benicio del Toro, he's just a bumbling, stuttering idiot in the film, which does help, but then he ends up portraying them in the end, so I feel like that was pretty pointless. Back to all the space stuff, you know, with General Holdo and Poe Dameron, he keeps asking, okay, so what are we going to do? The First Order is on our tails. What are we going to do? But then General Holdo, she's just not telling him, and she says she has a plan, and then Poe Dameron, he's not having it. He doesn't believe him, and so he commits a mutiny. And then they get the upper hand, but then General Leia, she comes out of her coma because she is still alive after she got blown into space, and I guess a little force cocoon, I don't know. And so, yeah, she comes out of her little coma, and then she uses that little blaster that they used in the New Hope to knock her out. She used that same one to knock Poe out. And so they take him and they get on the ships to escape because clearly the plan was they know that they're just not going to escape the First Order, so they're going to get on these little shuttle spaceships that'll lead to the Salt Planet. So General Leia, she's on there, Poe Dameron, he's on there, and the rest of what's left of the rebels, and General Hodo, she's clearly a good guy, so she stays on the ship and to make sure all the shuttle ships, they get to the Salt Planet. Long story short, Finn and Rose, they make it back to the First Order, and they're captured by the First Order, and which leads to a fight between Finn and Captain Phasma. And speaking of Captain Phasma, she was just as useless in this film as she was in the last film. They do nothing with her. All we just get is a fight, which I found entertaining to a point, until Finn, he starts making these puns talking about Chrome Dome, and then Captain Phasma, she's calling him scum, and then Finn says rebel scum. I was just like, But then he does crack her helmet, and we finally get to see Captain Phasma's face, which I thought they were going to do something with, but apparently not. She just falls to her death. And Finn and Rose, they meet up with the other rebels to the Salt Planet, but not before we get this cool shot of Captain Hodo, because the First Order we're about to blast what's left of those shuttles. But then she sacrifices herself in the ship that she's left in. She light speeds through the First Order ship, and it leads to this cool shot. It felt like a screensaver on a computer, and there's just no sound or whatever. I just remember when I saw that gave me chills, and I really like that shot. So now, before we get back to the big finale, let's rewind back and get back to all the Luke stuff, because, like I said, Luke, he's training her, and then for some reason, Rey and Kylo Ren, they're having a little Force Skype, where, they're seeing each other through the Force, and they're communicating through the Force, and then Kylo Ren, he's telling her about how Kylo Ren, he destroyed Luke's school for Jedis or whatever, and then how Luke had a means to kill Kylo Ren, and then Luke Skywalker, he tells her that Luke, he sensed the darkness in Kylo Ren, and that there was no turning him back, there was no helping him. And then right when he ignites his lightsaber and he was about to kill him, he sees what he was about to do and stops himself, but then it was too late. Kylo Ren, he comes back, and then he stops Luke and then destroys all his students, and then Luke Skywalker, he exiled himself to the island. And then Rey, she thinks that there might be a way to turn him, and then she goes off to help and go find Kylo Ren, and then which leads to another one of my favorite parts in the film is when we see Yoda. Like, when I was sitting in the theater, I saw Yoda's ears, and then when I saw that, it's Yoda, and then my next thought was, okay, are we getting puppet Yoda or CGI Yoda? And then I saw, okay, it's clearly puppet Yoda, which I am fine with. Now, granted, I like CGI Yoda, I like the cool comic collector CGI Yoda, but I like the puppet Yoda as well, and I just like because to me this is where Luke's story arc comes to a close. Well, not necessarily a close, but just it comes to something that's satisfying, because Luke, he was about to destroy that little I guess cottage that had all the Jedi books and all the Jedi history in it. He was about to set it on fire, and then he decides not to. And then Yoda, he ignites lightning bolts and comes in and sets it on fire. And then Yoda, he's laughing his little green butt off. And then he tries to tell him, it's pretty much a callback to A New Hope, is where he even said it in Empire Strikes Back, always looking beyond the horizon and never his mind on where he was or what he was doing. And it's pretty much just like, you can learn from failure. Failure is the best teacher, and it's all about getting old. It's like, I really like where they took Luke in this film, because it's like, he had one story arc in the original trilogy, and now we get to his elder years in this arc, and he's coming into terms of where he is, and he's learning to become one with the Force. And it was nice that Yoda was the one to teach him that, and to finally get him to realize that. Jumping back to here, we get Rey, and then she meets up with Kylo Ren, and it turns out that Supreme Leader Snoke was the one that was igniting these little Force Skype communications, whatever. And then Snoke, he's trying to get the location of Luke out of Rey. And, you getting this Emperor vibe from Supreme Leader Snoke, because this is one of the things that, again, another thing I was disappointed by, because, because for about a year and a half now, or I guess 2 years, we've been theorizing who is Snoke and what is his connection to other characters in the film. But turns out, no, we get none of that, because it turns out that Kylo Ren, he gets a hold of the lightsaber and kills Supreme Leader Snoke. Just like that, he cuts him in half. But it also leads to a sweet-ass fight Kylo Ren and Rey. They working together. They fighting those little red samurai guys, whatever. But it was just real cool scene in the film. And then after that, Kylo Ren, he's trying to turn Rey with him. He's trying to join him. He's not dark nor he's a light. He's just somewhere in the middle. And he's just trying to say, just fuck this. Let's burn all this to the ground. Let's start our own thing. But Rey says, no, we can't. Because Rey, she was trying to turn Kylo Ren back to the light, but that didn't happen. And so Rey, she escapes, and then Kylo Ren, he wakes up after Hodo, she light speed that ship through the Star Destroyer. That's what I'm saying. Again, sorry for these long pauses, but again, I just really wanted to talk it just intimate. So let's say First Order ships, because the First Order, all there are is just the Empire from the original trilogy. So it's the same thing, just different names. So but the other two things in this film that really just made me mad was just not just the fact that we don't find out who Snoke is, but Rey's lineage, because Kylo Ren and Rey, they're talking, and then he says, where you come from, and for a year, we've been trying to find out what's Rey's lineage is, and turns out she just comes from nothing, and that her parents were just drunk scums that sold her for trash or whatever, something like that. But now you can make the argument, sometimes greatness comes from nothing, but still, though, you set up my biggest issue with The Last Jedi is that you set up so much in The Force Awakens that when we get to The Last Jedi, some of that doesn't come to fruition, and we still get unanswered questions. So that's just really my biggest gripe with this film. So the other characters in the film was General Hux. He wasn't my favorite character in Force Awakens, nor was he in this film, because to me he just felt like Grand Moff Tarkin 2.0, which I thought he was going to die in that film, but apparently not. And he's more annoying in The Last Jedi than he was in this film. And especially when Kylo Ren, he's pretty much in charge of the First Order now, and then General Hux, he's just like, you're in charge, how dare you? And at that moment, I was just like, fuck you gonna do, Hux? And then Kylo Ren, he force chokes him, and I was like, yeah, exactly, not a goddamn thing. So yeah, just please, someone kill Hux off in the next film, please, and make it satisfying, because he was just really, really annoying. Now, Kylo Ren, I did like him in this film, but just watching him in this film, it just kind of brings it down for me a little bit, because now it just seems like he's just not only a Darth Vader poser, but it just feels like he's just like a whiny brat that's just, I don't know what his deal is. But I do like, the one aspect I like about him is just like, because, they make it seem like this new trilogy is going to have elements from the old trilogy, and they're going to try to turn him back, but turns out he's not. Like, there's just no turning him back, and he's just so far gone that he's just part of the darkness now. And even General Leia, she realizes that there's just no saving her son. And it took Luke for her to come for her to realize that. So now we're on the big salt planet, aka Hoth 2.0. Now, again, I like Rian Johnson's attention to detail, because, I'll explain on that later, though, but I like how one of the soldiers, he sees the red, he picks it up with his hand, and then he licks it, and he's like, salt. And they're coming at them with these new AT-ATs and ships, and they're going at it. And again, this is another thing of why I wasn't a big fan of all the Finn and Rose stuff, because Finn, he clearly has a means to sacrifice himself to stop that big laser beam from destroying what's left of the rebellion. He's pretty much doing a suicide, and then Rose comes in and saves him, and then stops him, and because I ain't gonna lie, that really had me on the edge of my seat, like, oh no, is this really the end of Finn? But then Rose comes in and changes all that. And then he's like, what are you doing? And then Rose, she tells him, you don't fight evil fighting what you hate. You save what you love. She said something like that, and then she kisses him. I'm just like, what? Ah, come on, yo. And then I guess that's just going to set up, I don't know if she's dead or alive or if she's going to be in the next film at all, but it just sets up this pointless love triangle between him, Rose, and Rey, which I'm really not looking forward to, because I really fell in love with Finn and Rey together, and now you're just tapping on Rose in this. I'm just like, what the fuck? And then we find out that Luke Skywalker, he's come to help, not to fight Kylo Ren, but to pretty much give the rebellion enough time for them to escape, because Rey, she does regroup with all the others. She lifts up the rocks, and then they all escape on the Millennium Falcon. But as for Luke, he comes in, and I did like that little reunion with the Dyson that he gives back to Leia. He kisses her on the forehead. I just like that little reunion. And even when he winks at C-3PO, I was just like, yeah, because and that's one of the few reunions I love. Just when he sees R2, and then when he sees C-3PO, because the droids, those are his boys right there. And plus, you also got to think, Luke is the only person that was ever really nice to C-3PO, because Han, he was. I'm not gonna say he wasn't 3PO's biggest fan, but there were times where he had to like a jerk to him. And Leia, she was nice to him when it mattered, but. But in any case, I like the reunion Luke has with all the other old school characters in the film, though. And so Luke Skywalker, he pretty much goes out, and you can see he looks a little different. He looks a little younger. His hair is black. His outfit is different, and he has his father's lightsaber, the blue lightsaber, which got broken in half with that little scuffle between Kylo Ren and Rey. But Kylo Ren, he comes down, he's trying to blast them with the new AT-ATs, and that didn't work out. And this little moment right here, I liked it, but at the same time, it felt forced. It's like when they're shooting at Luke Skywalker, and they see wait a minute, he's still there, he's still alive, and then he dusts his shoulders off. Now, I like it, but I wish they wouldn't do that. But I think if he had done it, if he had brushed his shoulders off twice instead of once, that just would have made it a little bit corny. So I'll give that a pass. And so both Kylo Ren and Luke Skywalker, they put out the lightsabers, they're fighting, and that's the other thing about this film. It's like we do not see one lightsaber on lightsaber fight at all. Even when there are two lightsabers in the same scene, they never really clash with each other. But nonetheless, I did still like that little fight between Kylo Ren and Luke Skywalker, because little do we all know, and I didn't even notice this on my first viewing, but the second viewing, we see that, because this is a salt planet, and anytime you scratch the salt, it turns red. But when Luke, he slid his foot over the salt, it didn't turn red. And turns out that it's his Force Ghost, because Luke Skywalker, he's still on the other planet, and but he's igniting his Force Ghost to teleport through other places. And in this case, the salt planet. Because again, he's given the rebels time for them to escape, and I just like the way that fight ends. He's all like, the rebellion is reborn. The war is just beginning, and I will not be the last Jedi. And at this moment, we see Rey, she's using the Force, and she still has the books. The books did not get destroyed, and everybody gets on the Millennium Falcon. And then Luke, he sends Kylo Ren off with, see you later, kid, and always be with you, as well as your father. And then he's gone, and then I just like that little moment. It gives the closure to the character we need, because, again, I like the Yoda stuff, especially when he tells him, he pretty much reminds him, like, again, always looking towards the horizon, but never his mind on where he was or what he was doing. And then we see Luke, he's finally at peace. He's becoming one with the Force. He's sitting there, and he's looking at the two suns, just like he did in A New Hope. And then he disappears, just like Obi-Wan did in A New Hope. And I just like the way they give that character closure. And then I guess at this point, everybody's on the Millennium Falcon. They're going somewhere, and then we go back to that other planet, the casino planet, and then we see the Broom Kid, and then he's wearing a rebellion ring, and then he's looking at the stars or whatever, and then boom, that's how the movie ends. So yeah, so that's how I feel about The Last Jedi, and that's how I feel about it. Like, in the end, I just feel like this film, I still enjoyed the film, but I just feel like this film, because, like, you also got to think, the biggest criticism about The Force Awakens was that it was just too much like A New Hope. And so when you get to this film, I feel like, okay, that was still fine, though, because, they were trying to familiarize fans with the franchise and make sure, and to ensure them that the franchise is in good hands. And so I get that, and I commend The Force Awakens for doing that. And so when we get to The Last Jedi, they're able to do something different, like they're just conditioning us. But I just feel like with this film, it's like they were just trying to do something too different that it just doesn't feel like Star Wars anymore. And I like Rian Johnson's direction in the film, but it's just like I'm gonna say it like this, to quote Grace Randolph from Beyond the Trailers, like she said in one of her old videos, it's like we're not saying don't take chances, but at the same time you do need to look before you leap and throw in some safety nets just in case. And I feel like they just didn't look before they leap and didn't throw any safety nets. And I feel like the best way to do that is what they did with Rogue One, in which that was a completely different film from all the other Star Wars film, in which that was a war film, but they still throw in some little stuff in there just to ensure that, hey, this is still Star Wars, like i.e. the Darth Vader scene at the end of Rogue One. So, yeah. And I just feel like they just took too many liberties, and I just feel like they set up our expectations up so high. Well, not so high, because no one told us to have those expectations. It's just they set up so much in The Force Awakens. When we get to this film, I just feel like I left the film underwhelmed and feel like I didn't really get anything out of it. I got a sweet new take on a Star Wars film, but I just feel like, I don't know, which also got me thinking, because before this film came out, they had announced that J.J. Abrams, he's going to direct Episode 9, which some people were pleased with, some people were not pleased with, because they felt like he's too safe of a director. But honestly, after watching this film, I'm kind of glad that J.J. Abrams is coming out, so that when we get to whatever Episode 9 is going to be called, at least J.J. Abrams, he can ensure that we'll leave Episode 9 a little less frustrated and confused than we did this film. And so, yeah, I like the Luke Skywalker stuff. I like all the space stuff to a point. The Finn and Rose stuff was just useless and not needed. I feel like we didn't get nothing with Snoke. We didn't get nothing with Rey. Kylo Ren was just But again, I love what they do with Luke Skywalker and General Leia, or Princess Leia, as most of us know her. Like, that just got me thinking, because again, Carrie Fisher, she unfortunately passed away last year, and it's pretty clear that apparently Disney does have a plan. They wanted to kill Han off in the first movie, kill Luke off in the next film. Granted, they could say that he's still alive because Force Ghosts are usable in other films, because Obi-Wan, he died in Episode 4, but he came back in the form of a Force Ghost in Episode 5 and 6. So there is a possibility that we might see Luke again in Episode 9, but Leia, what are you going to do with her? Because at this point, I kind of think that they should recast her, because I would think that they wouldn't want to resurrect her via motion capture like they did with her in Rogue One and like they did with Tarkin in Rogue One. But again, I'm just really curious as to what they will do with Leia, because I don't know, and I just hope that they don't use a book to go into that, in which I'm afraid hopefully they don't do with Snoke and other things, because that is one of my biggest gripes about Disney acquiring Star Wars. Is just because it's like any gripes you have about any of the newer movies, they just like, hey, you have any questions? Well, here, get this book, and that book will go into you for it. And then all the fans was like, whoa, all the problems you have with it, it's all in the book, and now Rogue One or whatever is cool now because it's in the books. And I'm just there like, did I have to read a single book to appreciate the original trilogy? No. Hell, even for the prequels, say what you will about them, but we can all agree, did we have to read a single book to get a further understanding of the prequels? No. In fact, here's the thing. The best Star Wars books are the ones that stand on their own and have nothing to do with the current story, and they were just simply an offshoot story. So just Disney, if you're listening, please stop using books to explain or justify something that we didn't get in a movie. But look, I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I just really wanted to give my thoughts and opinions on Star Wars The Last Jedi in spoiler form, so that you can really understand how I felt about the film. Now, again, I really enjoyed the film, and of course, I'm still going to buy it on Blu-ray when it comes out. I have the other films, regardless of how good or bad some of them might be, but I'm a completist. But it's not just because I'm a completist, because I really did enjoy the film. I just felt like there was just some things in the film that I was just a little underwhelmed with, and feel like they really could have did better. Just did better in some aspects. So just because of that, I'm going to give Star Wars The Last Jedi 3 stars for room for improvement. And lastly, if you're listening to this, you might want to turn to your screen, because I'm about to pull up a graphic. Because for those of you who are also wondering where does The Last Jedi rank with me amongst the other Star Wars films, here you go. Yes, you're reading it correctly. I like The Force Awakens more than The Last Jedi because, again, I still enjoyed The Last Jedi, but with The Force Awakens, despite the fact that I felt like The Force Awakens felt like A New Hope all over again in some parts, I still remember that I left that film very entertained and I enjoyed that film very much, and I left that film less frustrated and confused than I did The Last Jedi. Guys, thank you so much for listening. No matter how you feel about this film, I think we can all agree it's a good time to be a Star Wars fan, and I'm very much looking forward to Episode 9. But I am looking forward to Episode 9 with a giant question mark. And of course, I'm looking forward to Solo, a Star Wars story, which comes out in May of next year. But I will also have a giant question mark over my head for that film as well, because of all the behind-the-scenes stuff with that film. Yeah, like Disney, I love you, but I'm just having a giant question mark over my head over what are y'all doing with Lucasfilm, so I don't know. But in any case, again, thank you so much for listening, and if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button, and if you want to see more, check out my channel, the link is in the description below, and be sure to check me out on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and Periscope. And also, be sure to check out my podcast. The latest episode of my podcast is on my channel, where I talk about my ranking of every single Star Wars films, minus The Last Jedi, because I did record that before I saw The Last Jedi. So be sure to check out that podcast, that episode of the podcast, I should say. Either way, check it out. And thank you for listening. Peace.